Hi, I'm Tom Stephenson, and welcome to Tools, Techniques, and Mental Models for Success series. In this series, we're looking at the tools, techniques, and mental models that we can utilize in our day-to-day practices in work, life, and business. Today's topic is going to be mission and vision. And if you've looked at our earlier topics, which include VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, circumstances. And if you've also seen dealing with change and learning to learn, you'll see how these things all start to interconnect as we go forward, looking at a lot of different tools and techniques. But mission and vision for sure are areas that we need to think about when we're running a business and we're trying to direct the business. You can think of this management circle as sort of an outline that gives you a good perspective on how a business operates. We're going to be looking at different sort of models that businesses use, and this is one of many. This is more the classic model of where you have on the outline parts of the circle there, you can see where it says plan, organize, lead, control, and monitor, and it kind of goes in a circle. Well, this goes in a circle for a business and how it develops its strategy and how it moves toward vision and goal setting and how it achieves that. So you can sort of see inside the circle, develop mission and clear vision with strategic plan. So at the beginning, the company really needs to have an understanding of its purpose, as we'll talk about with mission. Needs to plan and organize long-term goals. And we'll do SMART goals in another one of our series, which helps to break things down. We're dealing with a higher level now when we're looking at mission and vision statements. And as we break that down, we can see that we will obviously need to deploy resources. We'll need to hire resources. We'll need to contract resources to help us achieve that. And generally, whenever we're dealing with a human and development process, we have to figure out, well, how can we ensure that we have proper motivation? And we'll talk about that in another one of our series when we're looking at intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic you can think of as personal satisfaction by achieving certain goals and going through the process of, for example, learning and how you feel about that. And that can be a very strong intrinsic motivator. Extrinsic is something outside the individual. So that can be, you can think of more of that in terms of monetary or external recognition processes, something that's not as tangible as intrinsic. Both are tools and both can be utilized, and you'll see in other areas as we discuss them, there's advantages to each one. I think the business world tends to think of extrinsic motivation far too highly and forget about the intrinsic side. And I think the most successful businesses have the right combination of both working collaboratively to an end goal. So we have motivate staff. We've got to check and see how we're doing. And you know, when we talked about learn to learn in our previous short segment, we talked about Anders Ericsson and deliberate practice and how we can get better and master something. Well, we need to assess the results. We need to get feedback to see how we're doing. We need to identify where we've got gaps, and where we have gaps, then we can shore up those gaps. We can learn new things. We can institute new processes. So that can help us in great ways to continue the cycle around. And then that might mean that we have to make some adjustments to our goals and our plan as we're going through the cycle round and round. We also said things change, so we have to look at, are we managing this change effectively? So these are kind of the overall management cycle. When we think about a mission statement, we're thinking about the purpose of the business. What is its essence? What are we trying to be in essence with this? And you know, mission statement and vision statement, they can sometimes collaborate on each other to be an impetus or a motivational tool to go somewhere. Vision, as you'll see, definitely does that, but it really establishes the purpose of the business. Can be used to outline your personal purpose as well. You know, you can have your own personal mission statement for how you view the world and what you feel your purpose is. Some people will call it your calling. That can give you, obviously, having a good understanding of that can root you in what you're trying to move towards. Needs to consider the external environment in many ways. So we can think about who is it we are trying to, who are our clients, who are our stakeholders. It can be done in many different ways. I would say that the best way is not to have it too long, to have it fairly short and succinct, so that people can clearly repeat it. But definitely it should assess the expectations of stakeholders, whoever that may be that you're dealing with. Doesn't necessarily have to be written with headings for each one, but sometimes you can see a clear driver as one of those stakeholders being in how the business describes itself. And there's not like a wrong or a right mission statement. There can be different positions that businesses in the same sector may take, and that can have impacts on other things such as culture, as we'll describe. I like to, in this series, give as many sort of personal examples as I can. I think if you have a personal example that resonates with you, it's very helpful. And I did a lot of consulting work with Mattamy Homes a little over a decade ago, and we've worked very closely. Our college has worked very closely with them over the years. Excellent company. And one of the things that I really appreciated working with them and a number of their executives at the time was how well the company was led, and from the top down and from the bottom up, all through integrated. And one of their particular mission statement was best homeowner experience. I think there's as much in what this says as what it doesn't say in this statement. And from what I observed and how they ran the company, they really took it to heart. Because that's the other thing I need to sort of clarify. There are many companies, they have a mission statement. You can see it on their website. But if you ask their employees, they really don't know what it means, or if they do, it might even be used as a joke because the company doesn't really utilize it, or they say it but they don't do it. I think that's really a problem. I think you're better to not have a mission statement if you're not going to be sincere about meeting that. So, I can think of a certain car manufacturer years ago, and they were saying quality is job one. And really at that time, quality was not job one for them. And they had a pretty miserable reputation at that time. They've since improved greatly, but they had to because a lot of the Japanese manufacturers kind of were challenging them on that at that time. So I think if you're going to have a mission statement, you should make sure that it really is what you're doing at that time and what your intentions are. So Mattamy Homes' mission statement is best homeowner experience. It didn't say best home. A lot of home builders, we build the best home. You know what? You could build the best home and still have clients that aren't happy with the process. You know that? Think about it. In our area, in the Greater Toronto area, you're going to be spending at least $1 million for a new home, perhaps $2 million or more. And you could have that house built and it could be beautiful. Like all your friends could think it's beautiful and everything. But if you were miserable as a homeowner that purchased this through the process, you're still going to leave a bad taste in your mouth. On the other hand, best homeowner experience means you built them a house that met their expectation and met their value expectation for what you were going to do. So that means you have to do a lot of things to satisfy that. And what I found interesting when I was working with Mattamy at the time, there was this rating system, J.D. Power. Most of you have probably heard of J.D. Power. They rate everything from lawnmowers to cars. And at the time, they were rating houses. And in our geographical area at the time, they published in all the major newspapers who was the number 1 home builder, the number 2, the number 30, the number 40. And you didn't want to be the number 40 home builder because it meant these were all bigger home builders. It meant that you were pretty much the worst. And I remember at the time, Mattamy finished second. And they didn't want, if you know their owner, Peter Gilgan, he doesn't want to be walking around Toronto saying we're the second best home builder. He wants to say we are the best home builder. And so they really looked at this and took it to heart, this best homeowner experience, because really it's surveys based on how satisfied homeowners are, with a lot of detail in them on the whole house process, and goes right down from the purchasing process to selections to a lot of other inferences. And so they really scrutinized this material, and they looked at where they were weak and where they could improve, and they developed their plan. Going back to the previous slides, they developed their strategic plan around that, and they organized goals and strategies, and they made sure there was training in place and motivations, incentives for staff, etc. And it really became integrated into how the company was being run. And I had a number of students that were co-ops during the summer, and I would always get them to write a journal. You'll start to get to understand how big I am on keeping a journal. So I'd make them keep a journal over the summer, and I'd read them, and it would say things like, stopped and fixed flat tire, stopped and fixed flat tire. And I'm like, what are you, a mechanic? Oh no, sir. The first day we were trained on making sure if it looked like a homeowner got a flat tire, we would pull over and we would see whatever way we could help them so that they wouldn't leave being upset. The other thing that they would do is when homeowners would come onto the site, you just spent all this money on a house, you're excited about it, and so you want to go to the site and see it. But of course, safety considerations, you don't want all the homeowners just coming whenever, and who knows, maybe somebody falls into a hole and hurts themselves or something like that. So I would say that on similar builder sites, historically, what would happen is somebody would chase them off the site because they didn't make an appointment. In this case, though, they were told, well, to meet up with them if they look like they didn't make an appointment, and, ask them very friendly, courteously, why are you here? And if possible, take them for a very quick tour, get them a hard hat, get them a vest, make sure that they're safe, and then ask them to please make an appointment the next time. So it's a different experience, getting chased off the site, or, getting a quick tour and then being asked politely to make an appointment the next time. Getting a flat tire, maybe somebody driving by and kind of laughing out their window at you, or instead somebody pulls over to the side, can I help you? How can we assist? Help them change the flat tire, call CAA, whatever that may be, and ensure that they feel comfortable with the situation. Totally different. I also remember even in their decor center, their expert that was in the decor center told me that they made sure the decor center, the finishes, would be just like they are on the house. So for example, if they were putting in hardwood flooring as samples so that people could see what the hardwood would look like in their houses, they would make sure that the person would use the material that was straight from the boxes. Hardwood flooring, it can have natural imperfections, right? Originally, the head of the decor center noticed that the installer was pulling out, any piece that maybe had a little bit of a minor impact or defect in it, and they would pull them to the side because hardwood might have a little bit of discoloration, that sort of thing. But the reality is when they do it in the houses, they kind of just put the hardwood as it comes out of the boxes. So she said, make sure you put that piece in there. And he goes, why? Well, you want it perfect. It's the decor center. And she goes, no, I want it the way it's going to look in the house. We want to set the right expectation. And if the client doesn't like that, then we could suggest maybe a laminate floor, which would have a more consistent look to it, or another offering if they're after real consistency. The same thing would be with like a granite countertop. Granite, it's beautiful, but it does have some imperfections because it's a natural product. If they don't want the imperfections, then maybe they want to go with a manufactured stone product instead, which would look more consistent. So it's trying to set the right expectations. So their best homeowner experience really is their purpose, to try to ensure that a home is built that homeowner is really happy with, and they'll want to buy from them again if they buy another house, or they will recommend Mattamy to them, to their friends, and to others as a result of having that best homeowner experience, which really builds the brand. And I think they did it really, really well, and they lived it, and everybody in the company knew that was what their mission statement was. So it wasn't something that was hidden. It was in newsletters, and it was really, really driven. And the next year, they easily won the J.D. Power research and publication on quality. And that was well planned, and that was devised, and that's how you do it as a business. You don't just say, we're going to have the best homeowner experience, let's go out and do it. You got to look at all the touch points. You got to have data. You have feedback from surveys they had, not only from JD Power, they had basically from another surveying company, Avid Ratings, I believe, that they paid for the research for that. So they had really good data to look at, and where could they make improvements. They did all kinds of quality walks, which was a very interesting process, so that they could look at, okay, so on finishes, we're not as good as our competition. Why are we not as good as our competition? And really dig deep. And we'll look at a lot of the reasons and how you dig deep into these things, tools like the 5 whys, etc., in this series as we go along. This is just sort of giving you the high level view, but you got to dig into the weeds to really get into the good information, so you can make sure that best homeowner experience is reached at the high level. There's a lot of things at the lower levels you have to do to make sure that happens. So that's a well-developed mission statement that was carried out as an example in the construction industry. That was very, very successful. Vision statement. Okay, so we take the mission. Well, that's the purpose. That's really, what your core purpose is. That's what you do. Vision statement is forward-looking. So you can think of mission statement as current, your purpose. And by the way, mission statement should be something that you don't really change every year. It should be something that takes a while. It should be devised in a way that it gives some latitude to the company, so you're not changing it, because it's really, purpose is really something that people take a hold of and they don't want to change too quickly. We did talk about change. Vision statement changes more frequently because there's a lot of things in the external environment that are moving parts, as we gave an example in our dealing with change in our episode number 2. If you haven't seen it, you might want to go back and check that out. But vision statement will change every 3 to 5 years. In some markets, we're talking about construction in our series. In some markets, it can change much more rapidly just because it changes so rapid. But in the construction market, probably 3 to 5 years is a reasonable time frame. But even the construction market has been changing faster and faster with building information modeling and other advances that we've been making. So you're forward looking and you're thinking about, where do you see this business in the future? And it should be, the aspirations for the business. Where do you want to take this business? Where is management looking to take this business? It's really like a GPS for the future, setting your course, right? So this is where we want to go, and then we're starting to think about how are we going to get there. And then we'll get into that in a future episode where we look at breaking that big sort of vision down into smaller, more achievable goals, so that we can break it down and start really putting effort into it and have more clarity on the individual things that we need to do. But at a high level, definitely is where we see the business in the future. And it should be something that's kind of inspirational. So with vision, John F. Kennedy really did that well. When he said, we're going to bring a person to the moon, a man to the moon. At that time, he said man, send a man to the moon and return him safely to Earth in this decade. So vision was looking out into the future, but the whole purpose of the moon mission was to get a man to the moon, return him safely, but putting it in a time frame was giving it vision, this decade. All right, and that's a very powerful tool to use when we're setting such a high-level goal. So you can think of vision as forward-looking, at very inspirational, very motivating for the employees, clear common direction. Vision can mold the culture of the organization, how they think, how they do things, as can mission as well. You could see where we were talking about mission, and we were mentioning how with a clear mission as far as best homeowner experience, that's going to change the way people interact. That's going to change the way that they work with employees, and not only employees, but the clients, how they work with their clients, and how they hire employees, how they hire subcontractors, because wherever there's interactions, making sure that those interactions fit with their mission and vision. And when it's done well, as I said, it's inspirational, it's emotional, and it can be challenging, uncomfortable. It can be reaching, as are well-written goals. They should be not something that's just, it's a piece of cake, I don't have to think about it. Well, then it's not challenging enough. You want to push yourselves without being unreasonable. It shouldn't be something that if people feel it's impossible, then it's not very helpful, because then people just get turned off. Same thing with extrinsic rewards, like bonuses and things. If people feel it's impossible, they're just going to turn off. It's not going to be inspirational. But if it's challenging, but they're starting to think about how they're going to actually meet that process, that can be a very positive experience. So going back to Mattamy Homes, as I said, I did a lot of work with them before. They had a vision statement, which I thought was also you could read a lot into it. Best home building brand in North America. Now, just by the name and being in a greater Toronto area, to say best home building brand in North America, at the time they were only building houses in the greater Toronto area. And yet they're saying best home building brand in North America. Well, you're not going to be the best home building brand in North America if you only build houses in Toronto. Even if you only build houses in New York or Los Angeles, you're not going to be the best home building brand in North America, because your geographic location is too small to even be recognized or understood beyond that. So when you see best home building brand in North America, it told me two things. One, they didn't say best home building brand in Canada, right? They could have said best home building brand in Canada. That would have meant that they're going to focus in on the Canadian market. No, they said in North America, which meant that they were obviously going to expand into the United States. And at that time, then they would be looking at, that would be setting their vision. All right. So where in the United States are we going to expand to? Where in Canada are we going to expand to? Can't go to every market at once. You've got to pick your markets. So what are the best markets? You have to pick markets like, are we going to expand into Florida or Arizona or North Carolina? Are we going to expand into Alberta or other areas in Ontario? Where are these marketplaces? Are we going to buy existing companies? Are we going to grow from the ground up? And you'll see overall, if you actually look into their background, they kind of did a combination of all of the above. And really, what they also wanted to define what's best home building brand in North America. What does that mean? Well, that to them, I believe, I didn't have the full confirmation on this, that means that you're operating in like the number 1 or number 2 recognition level in the markets that you're serving. So kind of like General Electric used to have that. If we can't be number 1 or number 2 in this product selection, then we're going to sell it off. Because those are the marketplaces that we want to serve in. So if we're going to be number 6, well, then maybe that's not what we want to do. So you had to look at the markets that you feel that you'd have an opportunity to move into 1 or 2 in those areas. And if you're looking at it from a homeowner perspective, it would mean that, tying with the mission statement, that the reviews that the homeowners would be giving, best homeowner experience, would be number 1 or number 2 in the jurisdictions that you serve. And if you do that really well over a period of time, you're going to build a really well recognized brand that is very, very desirable. So those are some of the things that we think about from building a vision statement and a mission statement. The vision is forward looking, and it's like, how do we get there, and what are some of the things that we need to do? In this case, best home building brand in North America. Well, we're going to look for certain markets, and we're going to, as we expand, grow in those particular marketplaces. And the nice thing about best homeowner experience and best home building brand, in a lot of markets, especially in the larger urban markets, you'll find that condominium building has become a very lucrative market. And so it's sort of like, because this Mattamy was always a low-rise home builder, but in some markets like Toronto, for example, they pretty much got as much of the market, their share of the market, as they could, except for the condominium market. And so what they did was they bought a very large condominium developer for their knowledge base and expanded outward from that. And they did some pilot projects on their own. So best home building brand in North America, well, home building condominium, that fits in there. best homeowner experience. Well, it doesn't say whether it's a a house, a townhouse, or a high-rise condominium. So they all fit in those overall statements, which is very, very helpful from that purpose. I think about them. I have this coffee holder here. I don't know if that shows up there that clearly, but they had the best home building brand in North America, and they have the best homeowner experience. They even have their core values, which we'll talk about in the next episode that we do, which is another way that companies view how they operate and what's meaningful for them. So mission, you can understand your purpose, and you can sort of get that, and it's really gritty. And if you work for a company that really understands that, it can be really helpful for you in the decision-making process. If you have thousands of people that work for you, it's nice if they really know at the core what is their purpose. And if you want clarity and transparency for where the business is going, then that can be very, very helpful from that perspective of where the business is going, and making sure that everybody is moving in the same direction. Getting everybody to move in the same direction can be challenging the larger the business is. If you're one person and you have clarity on the vision, it's pretty easy to figure out where you're going. But if you're trying to communicate that so that everybody's not pulling and pushing in different directions, that can sometimes be counterproductive. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed our discussion on purpose, mission, and vision. And we'll move to episode 5, where we will be looking at core values. See you next time, and have a wonderful day. And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel, as you'll see plenty more videos coming out over the next weeks, months, and years. Thank you.